welcome to 21st Century Saints, Julia Sanders. Are you a Sanders or you're a Saunders? How do you pronounce it?
So it's pronounced Sanders, but I just got divorced, and I'll probably change it later, but that's my name. So
okay, so that was your married name, and probably at some point change it. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I told you before I was a Sanders by that's my maiden name. So
that's so fun. That's so cool.
I know, and I come across quite a lot of Saunders with a U in there as well, but not quite as many Sanders. But yeah, there's not many of us around. But yeah, thank you so much for doing this. Welcome to the corridor. We are corridor conversation because there's only me in there at the moment. So we're stuck out of the class. We should be in Relief Society or Sunday school or whatever it is. Dipping out and hiding away from the rest of the mob so that we don't get picked on to go and do things for people. So I've seen you on TikTok. I've admired from a distance the amazing work you're doing there.
Oh, thanks.
So tell me about yourself. Tell me how you got to this stage where you're analysing Mormonism from TikTok.
Yeah, so I don't know how far back you want me to go.
Yeah, go for it. Right. I was born.
So I was born in Texas, and my parents had 8 kids, but I moved to Missouri, so I'm here where the real Zion is. So my parents had 8 kids, and then they divorced when I was 12, and then my dad got remarried to a woman who had 5 daughters. So there's and then they had one on their own. So there's like 14 kids total. So I'm the 4th of the 14, all of us. And we were really devout members of the church. I went to early morning seminary. I went to BYU, Idaho. I got my degree, and then I wasn't married or anything. And so I was like, I might as well serve a mission. And so my little sister and I served at the same time, and like just really gung-ho about the church, like super all in. I got married in the temple. So I got home from my mission, and then like a few, I don't remember how long I was home, but I met this guy, and then we got married. We got engaged after 3 weeks and got married after 3 months. So it was like really fast, and we didn't really know ourselves at all. So
only in Mormonism would that be considered acceptable?
I know. And like, I wish someone had stopped me and said, no, you don't know this person. You don't even know yourself, but nobody did. So that was really sad. And then just because we ended up divorcing later, but we started our family, and then I sort of started becoming, I love history. I love everything about the church. So like, I guess it's more like I love the church, therefore I love history. I don't know how to say that. But my dad and I were part of this group that we had created called the Mound Rovers, and we were trying to find archaeological evidence for the Book of Mormon here in the United States.
Okay.
And so, because I've heard stories or theories that it took place down in Mesoamerica, down in like Mexico and Guatemala, but like it didn't make sense to me. Like nothing made sense. So I was really going with my dad, and we would go to these mounds, and we would like visualize the Lamanites there and stuff like that. And so I was doing a lot of research, but I wasn't doing a whole lot of archaeological research, but I was doing more like the polygamy and like things like that. And I was trying, like I wrote an article apologizing, like as an apologist, like, Joseph was totally in his rights to marry these women, and the angel showing up to him with a sword was totally normal because it's all over the Bible. And like I cringe thinking about that now, but because that's so not okay, especially with these 14-year-old girls. But like, anyway, so like that's where I was at. And then like I started reading these books, these LGBTQ LDS books, and I became an ally for them. And I was like, no, like at least our church can believe what we want. That's fine. We can believe that gender is eternal, whatever. But like, why are we imposing our views on the rest of the world or the rest of the nation?
Yeah.
And I didn't like that at all. And like Todd Christofferson's book, The Brother, That We May Be One, like changed my life. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so, like hearing this man's perspective of his like 20-year partnership and how his family responded to it. And they were so loving and so caring. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is the best book. Everyone needs to read this and emulate this. And then like I was coming to terms with my own sexuality, and I started reading another book called Tabernacles of Clay, which sort of Taylor Petrie breaks down the changes in doctrine as far as the LGBTQ and even women. And like I was like, this isn't true. Like if it's changing so much, the church can't be true. Yeah. And then at the same time, I was reading another book called In Sacred Loneliness about the polygamy. by Todd Compton. And yeah, the other one was Todd Christofferson. Anyway, so yeah, I read that book and I was like, no, Joseph Smith is not, this is not of God at all. Like polygamy is 100% wrong. And so like the modern church broke down for me, and then the old church broke down for me. And then ever since then, I've been like obsessed. I don't know if obsessed is the right word, but it might be the right word, with like learning all the stuff about church history, because I'm trying to make sense of it, because I was born in this. I loved this. This was my whole reality. And like, I'm trying to process that. So I started my TikTok. My brother actually suggested it. He was like, you should have a TikTok called Analyzing Mormonism, and you have the energy and the ability to do it, but I don't. And so I was like, okay. So I started it like 2 years ago, just trying to process things myself, like asking questions like, what about this? What about the Book of Abraham? And then like, I've just been doing it for 2 years. So yeah.
Fantastic. It's absolutely fantastic. I think what you said there is so key, that you're using the exact same skills. You're on the same path, which is to use your analytical skills, your love of history, your yearning for knowledge. But what's happened is the magnetic poles have flipped, north-south has flipped. So those skills are all acceptable. You're allowed to ask questions as long as you're believing. As soon as you stop believing, then you're seen as being antagonistic and you know, trying to destroy people's faith, and all of those sorts of things start to come into play, don't they? But actually what you're doing is analysing Mormonism. So, and that's perfectly acceptable as long as you say, and I believe it's true. But as soon as you say, hang on a minute, one of the biggest items that started to chip away for me, it came out a long time ago now, but it was a little funky video that they'd put together about how fashion for sister missionaries had changed throughout the years. It was only ever such a short clip. It popped up on YouTube, and I remember it being shown in a young women's class that my girls were going to, but you know, I was way past young women's at that point. But and it was supposed to be faith affirming, like, isn't it great that now they get to wear trousers? And I remember just thinking, all that demonstrates is that the things that I was shamed for are no longer shameful. The things that you know, my generations back would have been shamed for, showing their ankles. I remember a seminary teacher saying that at dances you couldn't twirl a girl because it would show her ankles, and isn't that funny now to laugh about?
Oh boy.
But actually, no, it's not funny, because anything that you would shame someone for, if it's really important, we'd still be shaming them for it.
Right.
If God actually cared. And if he doesn't care, why on earth were you ever shaming anybody for those things? Why on earth was it ever not acceptable for women to wear trousers? It's absolute nonsense, isn't it?
Right. And then like with garments, because like garments used to go up to the forearm or whatever. And like my grandpa used to always wear his long john garments. So like if that's of God, but we're changing it and we're even adjusting it to like the cap sleeves now, like this isn't of God. If it's changing and God's unchangeable, then it's just man's understanding of, I don't know. And I don't like that at all. I don't like what women are, I don't like that other people have control over our bodies, or they try to have control.
And I think it's only as I look back that I realize how much control there was, or how much autonomy I gave away to be part of the system, how much I didn't stand in you know, on my own 2 feet. And I'm quite a strong personality, but didn't say, no, that's a nonsense, that's daft, of course I wouldn't do that, of course I wouldn't agree to that. But actually I did. And like you say, thankfully happily married 30 odd years later, but we met and married within 6 months, and you know, and that was normal. All of my friends did. All of my friends had whirlwind romances, and all of us got married super young. And it's just crazy when you look back, isn't it? The things that were normalized, and we all just started families even though we were stony broke. And and the church, like Oaks, just like 2 weeks ago, just said the same thing. He was like, you guys aren't getting married young enough, and you're not having enough kids, and like we can't afford anything. And first of all, your brain doesn't finish developing until you're in your mid-20s. Like no, So I mean, it's amazing. So how do you feel about the whole Mounds thing situation now, when you look at your research and all that effort and time you put into it? How do you feel about that now?
Well, like so with so I still feel good about it. Like I still learn a lot of things, like even like I have a website and like a lot of that still was the basis for it. And I was like, oh, I can just move in or like just reinterpret it a different way. And so like, that's just been really interesting to see my past self and be like, oh, I don't know how I made sense of this. And then like with me, I remember giving a talk and saying like, or a testimony where like, I knew the church was true. Like I 100% knew it was true because of the Book of Mormon and because of like the chiasms in it, the Hebraisms in the Book of Mormon, and like just so many like specific things that I knew were true. And then now that I can see, like I've been able to break these down, like, no, these aren't what you thought they were. Like the chiasms, for example, it's like, it's in the Doctrine and Covenants, which Joseph wrote. It's in his letters, which he wrote. It's in the Pearl of Great Price, which he wrote. So it's not an evidence. So don't do that. Anyway, so like I still, and like my family sees me as this angry ex-Mormon, and I don't feel angry. Like sometimes I am, like with the church covering up harm of other people. Like I don't like that. But like they see me as this angry ex-Mormon, and I feel like I'm the exact same person. Like I was always doing research and always standing up for what was right. And I'm still doing that. Like I still wear my CTR ring all the time because it means to choose the right to me, like to have integrity all the time. And like they just don't like that. But
so of your siblings, are they all still in apart from you, or?
So no, actually, that's a great question. So I feel like it's safe to say, because I'm not as super close to my stepsisters, but I'm pretty sure all but two of them are in the church and they're still living at home. One of them is a returned missionary, and then my younger sister, they're in. None of the siblings are in. My parents are very active. They're very they have a hard time with me dating a woman, and they have a hard time with everything that I do is this part of my life. But yeah, so most of us are gone and we support each other. We are there for each other in all this. So that's been really nice.
Yeah. I wonder how parents cope with that situation. It must be really, really hard to wrap their heads around that gosh, all of their hard work, because that's the trade-off, isn't it? You do this and this and this, and your children will definitely stay within the church, and you be faithful, you be uber faithful, you go to the temple every week, and then all of these blessings are predicated on that behavior.
Yeah.
And then this new generation, there's been such a change, and I think it must be really difficult for active believing members to kind of wrap their head around that isn't the case.
Yeah. Like I know my mom has said that she blames, or I feel like she blames herself for our leaving the church. Like she's failed as a parent. Because like in the scripture that says like, raise your kids in the way that they should go and they'll never depart from it. But which doesn't make sense, because we have stories even in the scriptures of like Lehi and Nephi and Laman and Lemuel that you can raise them however you want and they're still going to have their agency. They're still going to choose what feels right for them. So like, it's not their fault. Parents should know that it's not their fault. Their kids are just choosing what's good and authentic for them. Yeah. And but you're right. I think it's really, really hard for parents to handle that.
Yeah. It's a heads you win, tails you lose, tails you lose, isn't it, for parents? Because if you stay unhappily within the church, that breaks you. If you live authentically and say, I'm living in my truth, and I know this, and I know this, and I know this, and you've raised me to be a person with integrity and honesty and live an authentic life, that's difficult for them as well. I do feel for them. I feel kind of fortunate in a way, because my mum, bless her, she followed me into the church when I was 14 and said I was getting baptized, and not, my parents said, you're not joining that, it sounds like a cult. They were right. They were right. But they said, well, you can only have the missionary discussions if we get to sit in. And at that point I was all happy to join anyway. My best friend from school was a member of the church, so I'd known about everything for a long time. But that was my mum and dad's sort of their investigating process then. The missionaries must have absolutely rubbed their hands together at the thought of this family joining. But then when we sat my mum down, we'd sadly lost my dad, but sat my mum down and said, we have gone through this process and we have decided that we don't think the church is true anymore, we're not going to go anymore. she just went, aren't we? And I said, no, Mum, not you. We're not. You can still go if you want to. Well, no, if you're not going, I'm not going.
Oh.
And I love that about her, that she has that much trust in me.
I love that.
Whatever you found out, Ruth,
I love that. That's so, what a supportive mom. Like, that's so cool.
Yeah, just she'd be a great getaway driver. She'd just be like, you just jump in the car, go. She'd be like, okay, where are we going? That's Mum, we're out of here. Yeah, she's brilliant. So circling back then, childhood in the church, do you feel like you had a happy childhood? What do you think it gave you? What do you think you missed out on by being brought up a Mormon?
So I don't want to lose my train of thought. So I feel like happiness, I had a really rough childhood.
Right.
So I'm not trying, like, I don't want to share like everything, but like I was, right, like I was sexually abused when I was a kid. So that was really, really hard. And so like having the church sort of felt like it was like a medicine or a balm. And then with my parents' divorce, it was really, really ugly. And so again, I had stability in the church. I had a family in the church. Yeah, it was so good. And then like, so the church, like, I feel like I really needed it. And so like, I don't regret being raised in the church, and I don't regret my mission or my education, although like I do regret Brigham Young. I don't anyway, but the church was really, really helpful for me. And I think it was probably helpful for my family as well, going through all of this. Yeah. But I've heard that, you can graduate from the church because you don't really need it anymore. And then you move on, and then you can, make your own choices in your life and stuff like that. So yeah, the church was really, really good. And yeah, I don't know. I just super good.
No, I think that's really good. I mean, that's a really good perspective to have, and I think I wish that people who are still, active at church realize that can be people's experiences, that you can look back and go, I don't believe it anymore. It's not for me anymore. And there's all these things that are unhealthy about it. However, I know that it was really good for me going through the things that I was going through to have this in my childhood. And that's the complexity of it, isn't there? That it isn't just an easy black and white answer. There is complexity there, and there's community there, there's good people there, there's bad people there, and depending on what mix of Mormonism you get during your childhood, teen years, whatever. Some people have a wonderful time, some people have an awful time, and both experiences are completely valid. So what did you study at BYU then?
So I actually studied English literature. So I got my degree in English, and then I minored in marriage and family relations. So yeah.
Fantastic.
So I loved Shakespeare. I loved poetry, and and then the marriage and family stuff. Like I was like, it's kind of silly, but I wish I'd have gotten maybe a different degree. But like I was told, like, I don't really need a degree. It's just a backup in case my husband, because he's supposed to provide. It's just a backup in case something happens to him, like he's in a wheelchair or like he can't see or something like that. So like, I regret that, but I love English. So like I have like 1,000 books, and I love reading. And anyway, so that's what I got my degree in. So, and then I just applied for my master's to get a degree in history so that I can like be better at doing what I'm already doing. So
fantastic. Yeah. Richard, my husband, did English as his degree, and I did history as my degree. So
that's so cool. Yay, that's so cool.
I mean, do you having a love of Shakespeare, do you find that really dovetailed well with reading King James Bible? Because I always thought, gosh, but reading Shakespeare is super easy. But I think that's because if you have been immersed in the King James Bible, and obviously the Book of Mormon borrows so heavily from that, those sorts of these and nows and the sentence structure just feels very familiar, doesn't it, when you then read some Shakespeare?
I really think that's true, because like I have siblings that like really struggle with the scriptures with how they're worded, because it's kind of confusing. But reading Shakespeare, which is kind of at a different level, and the scriptures are kind of on a low. I feel like they're on a lower level. It's just so much easier. So that's a really interesting point.
It's an urban myth. I'm sure it's not true, but there is that theory that Shakespeare had a hand in the poetic fine tuning of the King James version of the Bible.
Yeah, I had one of my actual professors at BYU Idaho tell me that, and he was like, there was this one passage where like it'll show you like Shakespeare or something like that, and I was like, oh my gosh, like yeah. I have heard that.
I think it's been debunked, but there is that one passage which it's to do with his date of birth. And if you count so many words in, and
that's right. That's
right from the end, and it says, Will Shakespeare.
Yeah.
So it's really,
that's fun.
Yeah, it is. It is quite fun. And if what coincidence if it's not that, but I think it's again one of those things that as when we do seminary and we're doing all of that immersion in the scriptures, there's just a little feeling of superiority that we know those scriptures so well. And then I've felt very humbled when I've kind of come out of Mormonism and realized, there was an awful lot of it that I really didn't know, and I just trusted people's interpretation of it and trusted that the lesson material was leading me through those scriptures in a really sort of structured way to interrogate them fully, when actually what it was doing was smoothing Mormonism through those scriptures. You don't know what you don't know at the time, do you? But
like just processing what you're saying, like even like as a member of the church, like I thought I was like a scholar, I knew all these things, and then leaving them, it's like a high schooler going into college and you're like, I actually don't know anything. Like I thought, like it is a very different being in and then being out, and what you don't know.
And I think as well with the whole Book of Abraham situation that they have now, and trying to figure out how to place that with any sort of integrity in the canon scriptures anymore. I don't know how they're going to do it. They're still hanging on to it and hoping that people haven't noticed, I suppose. But I remember in seminary, you're younger than me, so you might not have had to do this, but one of our seminary scriptures was we had to memorize the whole of the first vision, and we had to, that was just expected that we memorized and gave the whole of that first vision as a seminary scripture. It was just trotted off, and that was a badge of honor that you could do that.
So I actually did that too. I have here, this might be disruptive, but hang on.
No, do it.
So in seminary, my teacher, she would give us a little bust if we memorized the whole 1838 First Vision account, and I did it, and I was probably the only one that year that did it. And so like, I had no idea that there were other accounts. I had no idea that there were inconsistencies, and I had no idea that the historical record was totally not what Joseph was saying it was. So like, I think I still have it mostly memorized, but I should try it sometime and test myself. But
you've got a selection now to choose between. So if somebody says you misquoted it, say, I wasn't quoting that one, I was quoting one of the other ones.
It happened on TikTok a few weeks ago. Someone's like, it's not a silent grove, it's the sacred grove, and I was like, nuh-uh, it says silent grove.
I saw that TikTok. That was a good one. And interesting, isn't it? Silent or sacred, either way, we're not supposed to talk about it. We don't spot the errors in the narrative of it all. And I think for me, again, going back to the whole changing of the garments, changing of dress standards, the changing that they're admitting that there are more than one account now, when we literally had to memorize that first vision account like it was the be all and end all, is just further evidence that the church itself isn't comfortable with its own history and its own truths,
and
they're trying to throw things at the wall to see what will stick and what people will be happy to accept.
I
don't know. So where you're at now then, with your project, with your publishing of older books, so tell me about that. It's so exciting.
So I've learned that being in a public, because I've written books, like I majored in English, like I've done the NaNoWriMo where you write a book in 30 days for 50,000 words. Like I've done that so many times. I didn't realize how long, or it just takes a long time for a book to be published, because you have to get it formatted, and then you have to edit it, you have to get a cover, you have to do all these things, and so everything is going very slowly. So we started a publishing company called Adina Publishers, and we want our main focus to be publishing queer, just anything, queer fiction, queer nonfiction, queer whatever. We've gotten several submissions. We have some of those underway in editing. But another thing that I want to do is all the old Mormon books that are out of print that are in the public domain, which usually means that the author has been dead for 70 years, or that the copyright is not owned by posterity or whatever. So we've been trying to publish those ones, and it's going really slowly, but we're really excited. Like we have, for example, William Smith wrote a book, and so we have this one published. The audiobook's up, the ebook's up. We're still trying to figure out the hardcover how to put it through on Amazon. And we have the novel expositor is running through right now with the publishing company or the printers right now. To get that up there in the audiobook, I'm still editing that. And then we have the Novel Relief Society Minute book. And then I want to do my own annotated version of that, because that's super interesting, because you don't realize so polygamy and the Relief Society are super hand in hand. I think Emma started the Relief Society to figure out who her husband was marrying. And you can see this kind of throughout the meetings, especially the beginning and the end, because she's not there at all through 1843. And then at the end, she's really being hard about only listen to Joseph when he's on the stand, don't listen to anything in private circles. And then, so that's just kind of crazy. And then we're doing the John D. Lee book, the Mormonism Unveiled, about the Mountain Meadows Massacre.
Oh,
and there's another one. Yeah, and there's another one called The Wife Number 19. That's one of Brigham Young's wives, and it's an expose on polygamy in Brigham and Utah. So all these are coming out, and so we're working on those. So yeah.
So you need to get them over to the UK somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can have some at Sunstone, I will happily man a table and make sure people purchase.
That would be so cool. Yeah,
it would be amazing to have them over here. I think people are fascinated, and even more so now that we have the freedom to be fascinated, or certainly for me, post-Mormon, I feel like I have the freedom to put my history head on and just interrogate it and analyze it without the need to try and fit it into a faithful narrative. I can just look at it and enjoy studying it.
Yeah, well, I would even hope that me as an active member I wish I'd felt the freedom to read anti-Mormon literature and to be oh, this is not true, or this part's not true, or reading Fawn Brody, who is a historian, even the active Mormon historians revere her book and they say that it's good literature. I wish that I had felt the freedom to explore, I guess, the anti-Mormon stuff, which is just church history. So yeah.
But we know why we didn't have that freedom.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not faith promoting. They're not. Yeah. It's not what does he say? What does Ballard say? Not everything that's true is useful, or something like that.
And I think there was that whole, it's just dog whistle throughout the whole of the general conferences and through lesson manuals. You don't look outside the materials. If it's not written within the four corners of this manual, don't be teaching it in your lesson, please. Don't be doing research elsewhere and bringing it into your classes, because that shows a lack of faith on your part as a teacher, doesn't it? Because we've prepared this. Our scholars have put the work into this. You don't need to in addition. And so it scared, certainly me, it scared me into feeling okay, I can't look anywhere else. And unless I get the green light, because it's being sold in Deseret Books or whatever, that this is a safe book to go and look at, I'm not going to go and look elsewhere.
Just thinking, that's making me think of even the manuals that they publish are so carefully worded. There's the one where it talks about tithing, and in one of the manuals there's 3 dots of how we're supposed to be tithing. But if you look into those 3 dots, it goes back to a talk, I think it's in 1912 or something, where the prophet is saying, oh, one of these days we won't have to pay tithing. We will just have enough in the storehouse and it'll be gone. We won't have to live that principle anymore. But that was in a conference talk, and in our recent manuals they had to flush that out, because they're no, we need to pay tithing. We can't even, the church can't even trust its own sources to promote its own messages. Like,
yeah, but it's so dishonest, that, because anyone who's ever had to write an essay knows it's absolutely fine to put those ellipses in. If you are skipping, you've got a word count, got to do it in 2,000 words, and you're skipping part of that paragraph that is totally irrelevant to the point you're making. However, if it's relevant to the point, if it in fact is counter to the point you're making, you can't quote that and miss that bit out.
Right.
And so to put that into correlated materials that must have gone through committees, and everyone give a nudge and a wink and go, yeah, that'll fly, that's fine, we'll get away with that.
They won't notice. Yeah. Yeah.
It's just mind-boggling. And I think that for me, when I was in my rantiest, first having decided I'm done, I'm out, and people would say, why? It would be because I was lied to. It's not even the individual lies, it's that they felt comfortable lying to me.
Oh, yeah.
The trust is gone. It's like a relationship, isn't it? You're like, it's not what you lied about, it's that you felt okay to lie to me. That lack of respect, that lack of trust is gone. So I think I don't know, I don't have that much contact with active believing members still, that I kind of could get a sense of where people are. But obviously in the UK, congregations are dwindling fast. But what sort of feedback do you get over where you are? And
so the home ward that I was in, that I grew up in, I was just told by my parents that it actually is growing, which is unusual, but like they had to split it up into a branch and a ward. So like there's so many people there that have so many kids. Like the primary, I think, is like, this might be wrong, but I think it's like 400 kids. It's got a ridiculous amount of kids.
Wow.
Because everyone's just having like 7 and 8 kids.
Wow.
And so that's really big. Yeah. But I was talking to my friend in Utah, and he was saying that his ward, his stake has now only a ward. So like, and also they're building a temple here in Springfield, Missouri. Like there's not that many members here where I live. Like, I don't know. I think it's just a facade that they are building temples, and it has nothing to do with church growth, because we know that the church is not growing like it used to. So like I get the sense that it's not growing. Just my home ward is a unique situation, I guess, where it is. So yeah. Certainly not through converts. It's through people having babies.
Yeah. And that generation will then, I think, come to an end, and the next generation down seem to have disappeared, the teenagers as they are now, which is why they're throwing a ton of effort and money into that generation.
That's true.
The temple building thing, I just can't fathom. There used to be a time when there was a certain metric for gaining a temple, which so many active believing members who would therefore be able to go and sustain running it, and that seems to have gone out the window. But I'm very cynical, and I just feel like, I don't have any proof for this, but I feel like somebody's getting the contracts for doing the building and can probably charge whatever they like, and somebody's getting the contracts for furnishing it, and do you know what I mean, and developing land round about it, whether it's for housing or whatever, I don't know. But it's for a very wealthy church, it'd be a very good way of washing it through from being tithing money, charitable status money, and then out into the hands of families that maybe have connections. I don't know.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
And the more you build, even if they're not used, it really doesn't matter, because the church has been able to get that money into the hands of the people that have those sorts of businesses then. And it's cynical, I know, but I just think, there's no logical sense for building them. They're just going to be mothballed. There's not going to be to actually keep them
and they're so expensive. Like I heard that their budget is like in the billions to make each temple. And like we just were driving through Utah last week, and the new Taylorsville temple, it's huge, like, and it's right on the edge of the highway. Like, I don't know how, it doesn't make any sense to me. The budget, the membership, it doesn't make any sense.
No. We'll see what happens next. Maybe there'll be some very high-end hotels springing up.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
They'll repurpose them all. So I put down some questions for myself that I wanted to ask you because it's all going up my head. Oh, you said something on one of your TikToks that I just wanted to say, fangirling here. You said something along the lines of the church cannot have real converts until it is open and honest with its history. And I absolutely love that. And that really spoke to me as a convert, because it is that whole thing of, I thought I was converted to something. It turns out it was a mirage. It wasn't true anyway, the thing that they'd sold to me. And so that thing of the church needs to be vulnerable, be open and honest, even if that means they lose vast swathes of people, get down to the bedrock of what their actual faith structure is, and then any converts to it are doing it with all the facts, aren't they? So
I feel that very deeply. Like with any relationship, it's like you have to be vulnerable and show who you are, so that someone else, you have to be unconditionally you, so that you can be loved unconditionally. Like with the church putting up that facade, they're not allowing the members to know them or to convert to them or even love them. Like it's just a fake version or a wall of what they want to show you.
So I really like that, and I think you say some really great things, Julia. So I will definitely hope push people towards your TikTok from the UK, because it's fantastic. So what's next for you then? You've got the books simmering away, you've got your TikTok going on. What are you excited about doing next? Is there any other big plans coming up?
So like I'm hoping to marry my girlfriend, so hopefully that'll happen soon. Those are the biggest things happening. We're just like living life.
Have you got plans? Have you picked a date?
Well, no, we've discussed like getting married in Ireland, because like why not? But I don't think my family would like that, because it's a kind of a fight. I don't know. But like, we were just in Hawaii a couple of weeks ago, and like, no, it's fine. It's not that expensive to go to Ireland. No, nothing's been planned and nothing's happened yet. So it's just all up in the air. But my daughter starts school next month, and she has a birthday coming up, and we're just living life like normal. So the publishing company is really the biggest thing that's going on right now. So
and what have you done since leaving Mormonism? Are you now drinking coffee? Are you? So have you done all of the tick list of
so I drink coffee sometimes, but like I really don't like coffee. Like I have to have it really watered down, like with creamers. Like I have a little bit of coffee with my creamer. So I do enjoy wine. I still like the sweet wine, like the Moscato or stuff like that, because it's wine. Alcohol is just gross to me. Like I don't like whiskey. I don't like anything, pretty much nothing else. And then like I don't like tattoos, because they feel like stickers, and I don't really like them. But I admire them on other people's bodies, so that's fine. Let me think what else. I don't really wear tank tops. So like I don't even own a tank top. Like I don't know. What were there other questions? I can't remember.
I can't think what else is on the tick list of...
I won't ever smoke. Like there's just certain things I'm like, I don't want to do drugs, like at all. Like
I know. So. I remember having this conversation with Rich and with our kids, and saying, you almost have to go through that mental checklist. And I remember saying to myself, do you want a tattoo? I don't want a tattoo. Don't get a tattoo then. You don't have to have a tattoo.
Yeah, exactly.
Suddenly, everything's back on the table, isn't it? And you've got to go through and say, I don't think I really want to do that. I don't have to do it.
The church has this idea that's like, if you leave the church, you're going to do everything bad and everything's going to go awry. But it's like, no, you just have to make a conscious decision. Like your life is yours now. You can make that decision. You can take that off the table if it's not right for you.
And I think there's a lot of sort of post-Mormons who still have quite, from the outside looking in, quite Mormon standards over things like that. Most of my work friends would probably say she's quite straight-laced, she's I've not suddenly become this rebel bank robber, or living a righteous life. It's still pretty much the same. But it's interesting, isn't it, how we think we're going to, without the church we will definitely go off the rails. And I remember saying it. I remember saying I'm so glad I'm a member, because where else would my life have been if I hadn't have joined the church? Probably about the same, actually.
Yeah. Well, and the biggest thing for me is like, I thought, maybe it's not the biggest thing, but like I thought, because happiness only belongs in the church, not outside the church. But like, I am very happy outside the church. And like, so it's just a myth. It's like, it's just scary to make that leap out. But the church doesn't own happiness.
No, but nobody in the church will believe you when you say that.
No, I know. They're like, you're unhappy, you're angry. I'm like, what? No, I'm not. Like, I'm happy. And I'm like, but you're telling me, like, they can tell me how I feel. It doesn't make any sense.
I'm happy to be this happy, and I'm happy not to be this as stressed and just overwhelmed by everything that we were having to do when we were active believing members. We were out for a walk the other evening after work. We'd had dinner. We went for a late night walk. It was sort of a Tuesday evening. And I just said to Rich, have we got anything else planned for this evening? And he was like, no, I don't think so. I said, so we've not got to go to the chapel and drop off kids for youth night and hang around for youth night and then drop people home afterwards. And then, and suddenly you remember all of the additional bits and pieces that we squeezed into our week. And it felt like, oh, isn't this nice, just to reclaim our week and go, okay, there's things we have to do. There's so much more freedom to choose what we want to do, and how we want to show up for the people in our lives and spend time with friends and family. So I think it's
the church takes a lot of time out of our day, like just
it's really busy. And COVID, I think, was a big leveler for that. I don't know how it was for you. It allowed people so much breathing space, and they actually got time to find the CES letter or find TikTok and find things and go, okay, I've not heard that before. So
or even just, I've had a lot of friends that just during COVID, they're just like, I'm fine without the church. Like, I don't need to go back ever, because it's like detaching themselves is like, they realize it was like placebo, or like it wasn't really helping them. I think
we were still, those first few months of COVID, we're still trying to make Sunday a little bit special and still have sort of a semblance of a service at home, because England went into a really full-on lockdown, where you were literally, you were just within your household. You weren't allowed to socialize with other households. You could go for a walk once a day, but only one person in your home was supposed to go and do the shopping and things like that. Really, really tightly, and that, in some ways it was good, but it put us in a little bit of a bubble. And we'd got our 3 younger children plus my daughter's boyfriend living with us, and so we were trying to make Sunday morning special, and suddenly it became this, we loved Sunday mornings again, because we would have a bit of a brunch, and then we would get the guitars out and maybe sing some hymns, and it was sort of March time, so we'd get the log burner going, and it was just very cozy, and it felt like proper family time. It felt like, when I read the scriptures, one of my favourite ones was King Benjamin, and all the families show up in their tents and turn their tents. But it was that feeling of you're sat with your family in your little tent and experiencing, spiritual uplift, but with your family unit. And it felt like that. I felt that sort of connection to spiritual, but with the family, and not the overwhelm of picking people up on the way to church, getting there early for a meeting, setting an activity, giving a talk, fitting it all in, sitting apart from each other if Richard was on the stand or I was on the stand or whatever. And it just felt right. And then we found out stuff that meant that we didn't go back. So
that's so fun.
So and the answer can be, we don't care in the States. So when you're in the UK, you think, oh, I bet in America they really care about what goes on in the UK as far as the church is concerned. And then you realise, no, they really don't. the church in Utah especially seems very much Utah centric. So am I right in thinking that when you're a Mormon in Utah, it is all about, you know, life in Utah? Or does it matter where people serve their missions? Does it matter about converts around the world? Or is it more about the church in the...
That's a great question. So I serve my mission in Utah.
Okay.
I live in Missouri, but like I have heard that a lot too, where people outside of even just Utah or the United States, the church doesn't really care. Like the church wants numbers in Africa. Like the church is growing in Africa.
Yeah.
And I've heard stories of like the church going to Australia and like trying to sell the BYU pathways, and they're like, no, we have really great institutions, like we don't need your stuff. But the church doesn't. There's a disconnect there. So yeah, I kind of sense that too, that the church really doesn't care about anyone else except itself. And like that's really sad.
Well, I get the impression it's not sad. We've got enough. We you know, the UK's got enough of a big ego. They don't need the Mormons to do some stuff. But I think it's sad because I think we imagined that it mattered to Mormonism that it was a worldwide church. It mattered to us in the UK that it was a worldwide church. We were proud of the fact that there was a worldwide church, I think. But then I've realized sort of post-Mormon that actually a Utah experience of Mormonism really is just all about going to BYU, marrying at BYU. You know, there's and needing to be at least 4, 5, 6 generations back, wise, for you to be considered someone marrying into. And yet we have such a big missionary program and want converts, but we don't actually view converts as being sort of on the same pedigree as...
that's sort of like they grow the elite in Utah and then everyone else is just I don't know. That's really interesting.
And I think it's in some ways it's good to realize that, because it's made me realize some of this, it's made pieces of the puzzle fall into place. So I remember as Relief Society president being handed a form to ask someone in the ward that was struggling financially to fill out. And it was in dollars. It was to do with the American tax system. It was asking for information that was totally irrelevant to the UK system at all, and trying to help somebody to fill this form in and thinking none of this is applicable. None of this makes any sense to them whatsoever. But that the church, somebody at head office hadn't actually twigged that the forms maybe need to be different for different parts of the world.
That's so interesting to me, because I do live in a bubble, and I'm in the States, and so like I don't ever really think about outside. But like that's the church brags that it's a worldwide church, but it's really like, is it though? Like are they catering to? Are they doing form, like even something as simple as a form for this woman to have? Yeah, like they're not.
Which would take half an hour for somebody to go, what does need to be on that form? Can you make up a Word document? Brill, we'll sign off on it. That's the one to use in the UK, and likewise in, I don't know, Italy or France or Australia or whatever. They just need somebody on the floor to go, this is what we would need, and somebody instead to have that sort of one size fits all. And
this church is it's such an American church that like I'm realizing all of the time, like even the Family Proclamation, someone pointed out that it doesn't cater to any other culture except for the American culture. Like, and I just think that's so interesting. Like, I don't know, like it's just an American church.
It is. But again, I think this is the unwitting testimony bit, which with your history head on, you know, that thing of you look at an artifact or you look at a piece of writing and you say, what were they trying to tell us with this, and what have they actually unwittingly told us about themselves with this you know, artifact. So the proclamation to the family is a really interesting one, because that was given within my sort of time in the church. We were newly married at that point, and even then I remember reading it and thinking, that doesn't quite gel with the world at large. That's quite an interesting document to have. But trusted it. Now, with sort of almost 30 years distance away from it, you look at it and you just realize, how American centric it is, but how white Western culture centric it is as well, and how rooted in sort of 1950s post World War II family dynamics it is as well. And how it doesn't really take into account things like test tube babies or
working mothers or working women with careers.
Wow, like that when it talks about the parts of being able to procreate being sacred and you mustn't mess with them, and even at that time it was not, I mean, it was the 1990s, wasn't it? But thinking, well, it's now possible for people to have a baby and have eggs donated or sperm donated to help them to have their own children. Are we saying that they're not allowed to do that as members? What are we saying? But it was written for a certain purpose, and now with hindsight we can really see that. Look back on it and really see how it was in reaction to certain things that were happening over in the States, because it wasn't really relevant to other parts of the world.
No, it's not.
But working mothers, which is such a normal thing in most parts of the world, maybe not so much in America because they did very well after World War II. It was actually really quite common, wasn't it, for a family to be able to survive on one income. But most other parts of the world have always needed two incomes, and unless you were the landed gentry and you didn't need any income, then you lived very nicely. But so I think it would be interesting with your history head on, when you've got your masters especially. What are you going to do for your masters? Have you picked a
just history? So you've
not picked something you want to particularly specialize
in? I guess so. The university that I applied for, they have like world history, US history, and then both of them together. And I was like, maybe it'd just be easier for me to do US history, but I haven't been accepted yet. So it's still pending, because they're like, oh, you sent in your application like really early, so we're not going to review this till September. So I was like, oh, okay. But I got accepted to the same university 2 years ago for English, but then life got crazy and the divorce and everything. And then, so I'm applying again. Hopefully they'll accept me. But it looks different because I was an English major moving to, anyway. But I was just thinking about just doing American history. So although world history would be really interesting too. It's just, I just feel like it's so big. Like I guess it's it just sort of feels daunting because it's the whole world. So,
and you'd have to zone in, wouldn't you? You'd have to specialize in on something anyway. So, if American history, which you know an awful lot about certain parts of American history already, it'd be very easy to focus in on something like that. My degree was a history degree, but I then focused in on European, and I ended up really focusing in on sort of 15th century, the Holy Roman Empire and Maximilian.
That's so cool.
So you kind of go niche and niche and niche, don't you, until you end up just knowing an awful lot about one really, really specific time.
Well, and then lately I'm doing a lot of research with the Mormonism and its views on Blackness, and so that's super fascinating to me. And so like even just learning about that with the US history and like the slavery and things like that, that's really interesting to me. And so like maybe I can go sort of that direction later. But
oh, that would be really topical as well, wouldn't it? And there's lots of crossover with social injustice and history. And the fact that history is told by the victors. So where is the history for Black people in America particularly? It's gosh, that would be so interesting. I'm so excited for you. So when will you start? Would it start in September? Or would it start?
No, it would start January. So I think that's when. So that I'm used to a BYU track system, but this it's set up differently. But I think it would start in January if I get accepted. So just hope for that. But so I this is off topic, but I just got. So Jane Manny James is a Black woman that was sealed to Joseph as a slave, and I just got her autobiography today. It's so tiny. It's like 10 pages. It's just, there's not anything there. And like, I don't know. I'm that just so fascinated with all that kind of stuff, and like wanting to hear these stories that no one else has heard, or like, yeah.
So, I mean, that's her own writing. That's her own.
Yeah,
Okay.
just a few pages though of her. So this is like, I haven't read it. It just came in the mail today, but like these stories that no one, like, I didn't know who she was as a member of the church. Like, I don't know. Yeah.
And it's just the fact that the church has controlled her narrative and her story for so long as well, either by not talking about it or by controlling it and only doing it in a very particular way to protect Joseph's reputation or what have you. Are there such things as, so in the UK, we have a census every 10 years. And when we're doing our family trees, family history, tracing it back, often one of the best ways of figuring out sort of people's family histories is to get that census from that time period. And then you know who was in the house. It lists what their occupation was at the time, and it tells you a little bit about them. So I'm just wondering whether she would show up on censuses during
that's a good point, because like I did a lot of indexing as a member, and we look through those censuses all the time, and that would be really interesting. In fact, now that you're saying that, we're reprinting the Relief Society Minute Book, and as I was typing in these women's names, I was like, I don't know for sure, but I don't think any of these women are Black. And like, I didn't see Jane Manning James at all. And she would be right in that time period.
Of course, yeah.
Like, so like, I don't think that they were allowed to join the Relief Society. And maybe that's a normal thing, I guess, but like, I don't know. But like, anyway, so yeah, looking up censuses and seeing their ethnicity or whatever, that would be really, really interesting to go back and look at.
It'd be interesting. And that's really key as well, Julie, the fact that she doesn't show up in Relief Society. So when people say, well, she was sealed to the prophet, so that tells you they weren't racist. Well, then why wasn't she allowed a place at the table in Relief Society? She's sealed to the prophet, but isn't allowed to join this progressive women's organization. Really?
And it has nothing. The Relief Society was totally separate from the church. Like I guess there's a newspaper, the Evening and Morning Star, where like in Missouri here, they didn't allow free people of color to come and live anywhere here. And so the church was really pushing that. Like Oliver Cowdery in the newspapers was like, do not move here if you are a person of color. And that just was really hard. But then she was able to live in Nauvoo. Like they were able to, because I guess that rule didn't exist in Illinois. But like, anyway, I'm going on tangents, but like, that's just really interesting to me to see. Yeah, like that's just fascinating to me.
Yeah. And when you know that she's somewhere, but she can't participate, it's almost like tracking her on Google Maps in time, isn't it? And kind of here that she wasn't able to do this, or she was here and she was able to do this, and then those 10 pages just sort of expand it through time then and see what she was having to deal with, and for them to say, oh yeah, she was happy with that.
That's so, and it's, I don't see that as a happy story at all. I don't know how the church can twist it any other way. Like, you didn't let her go to the temple and you sealed her as a servant. Like, there's nothing good about this story. And I don't know, and I haven't read her book yet, but I don't know like who her family are. I don't know anything about anyone who came over with her. Anyway, we just have so limited information on this.
Oh, it's exciting. I'm really pleased that you're doing it. I'm really pleased that you are in the spaces that you're at in TikTok, with TikTok, and you have the time and energy to do all of that. So keep on doing what you're doing, and we will enjoy it. And if you make it over to the UK or to Ireland, please come and visit us.
Okay.
Please drop in. We would absolutely love it. We've got Sunstone in October. So if between now and then we figure out a way to get your
that'd be so fun.
Books over there, that'd be great. Come in person, bring them along.
That'd be so fun.
We'll give you a slot to come and talk to everybody. That's so cool. It's ever such a small, tight little Exmo crowd in the UK. Everyone knows each other. Everyone's super supportive of each other. It's like the Walking Wounded. Everyone just kind of props each other up, and
I love that.
I think it's that thing of when you've all just been through the same storm, you kind of, it doesn't really matter. People have got completely different life experiences, but we all are just kind of looking around at each other going, wow, that was a lot, wasn't it? You okay? I think that is one of the things that we quite enjoy as UK ex-Mormons, post-Mormons, nuanced Mormons, that people are trying their best to be supportive of each other, because we all know it's a grief, isn't it? You've let go of something that was massive in your life, even though you are angry about bits and pieces, and even though you know it's not true anymore, you've still got to grieve for who you thought you were going to be at this stage in life. And
my girlfriend's ex-Mormon too, and we met. We were actually roommates at BYU Idaho. So that's kind of funny, but so it's really nice that she's ex-Mormon also, just because I feel like I have to process this so much, and it's so much of my life that like it'd be really hard to date someone who would just be like, no, I don't like that. Understanding is different, but so that's really cool.
That is maybe a conversation for another time in another corridor. But when you were roommates at BYU, was there a spark there and you just didn't act on it, or just nothing, just good friends?
Just good friends. So like I started questioning my sexuality when I was 18. But then like just kind of shoved it down, because that's like I didn't even have language for it. Like I didn't even know anything about that. So like, but just asking like, do I have feelings for this person? But shoving that away, because that's not what the church's narrative is. You have to be married to a man, and then re-exploring that later as I was becoming an ally and being like, no, like I need to accept that this is just part of who I am. So but no attraction there. We were just good friends. So yeah,
I'm glad that you found each other, and I'm super excited to hear about the wedding.
I'm
rooting for Ireland. I think
I really want to, and like we'll just fly the people who are important, and everyone else can fend for themselves. So
that's it I'm saying. So have you got family ties to Ireland? Is there a particular region in Ireland that you want to go to, or
no, I've never been to Ireland. So like my grandpa was born in England. I can't remember where exactly, but I have family up there. But yeah, we just Ireland is gorgeous, and like those old castles, like I don't know how expensive it would be to get married in a castle. Probably pretty expensive, but anyway, we want to do it anyway.
I've got my great grandmother. Well, my grandmother was Irish. My great grandmother was lived in a little fishing village called Killark, just a little way outside of Belfast. It's beautiful country. It rains a lot, that's why it's so green, but as long as you're happy, you know that you might get wet on your wedding day.
That's fine. It's Ireland, who cares?
Yeah, exactly. You can have shamrocks in your hair, and fantastic.
Aww.
Yeah. I'll Pinterest board it. I've started already.
Okay.
All right, lovely. It's lovely chatting to you, and thank you very much. And stay in touch. And if there's anything we can support you with, or anything that you think we would be interested in, please let us know, and we'll do our best to promote it in the UK as well. That'd be great.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're very welcome. Have a lovely evening. We'll speak soon.
Thanks, you too.
Take care. Bye.